Welcome back to the KDPG Sunday edition. This morning we are talking about the state Supreme Court's decision this past week to order the state legislature to redraw the U.S. congressional districts in the Commonwealth. Our guests this morning are Clifford Levine. He is with the co-chair of the Public Affairs Group of the Pittsburgh law firm Cohen and Grigsby. He's also represented Democratic Lieutenant Governor Mike Stack and three other high-ranking case. And Heather Heidelbaugh, our partner with the law firm of Lish Teachman, is a member of the litigation practice group. She's an experienced trial lawyer and a former Republican member at large of the Allegheny County Council. Jerry Micco from the Post-Gazette joins us as always, not as always, but this particular program.
Yep. And happy to do so because I do have a question. I want to circle back to the last segment we talked about and timing. And Heather, you brought this up, and Cliff, you too. This is I don't want to say fast track, but when cases do go before the Supreme Court, usually those arguments take a little longer. But we talked in the break, Cliff, you said these, a lot of times election cases go a little faster, but midterms are coming. And it's a midterm where I think the Democrats think they can do some damage here. And Pennsylvania is a state where they'd like to do a little bit. But 13-5 over 2 or 3 election cycles isn't going to really help. This might. So what, I mean, is this part of it? Is this part, I mean, Heather, you might say, yes, it is. I don't know, Cliff, maybe not. But is this part of it? You're putting it in a Supreme Court that is an elected Supreme Court that has a Democrat majority. Do you think the United States Supreme Court, and Heather, the suit the Republicans are bringing to the U.S. Supreme Court, is that part of it? They're saying it shouldn't be a state issue. Is this a state issue, or is it really a federal issue because it is an elected Supreme Court? I want to take that one piece of it and hear from both of you on that.
All right. So what was interesting about this case was that it was brought under the Pennsylvania Constitution. And traditionally, the state Supreme Court that interprets its own Constitution will end the litigation. Generally speaking, the United States Supreme Court would not review that. The argument that the Republicans have made is that under a provision of the United States Constitution, the time, place, and manner of selecting legislatures is left, or selecting representatives is left to state legislatures. So they are saying that that would be a violation of the federal provision because you're taking away the opportunity of the state legislature. But I would like to point out that in Pennsylvania, we pass the congressional maps just like laws. Senate, House, and the governor has to sign it. And in 1990 period, there were 2 different parties and they couldn't agree. And the Supreme Court then took jurisdiction of that case, had a special master who quickly designed a map so that they could have that in effect. And that took 11 days for the special master to come to develop a map. So there are instances where the state Supreme Court has come in with the map. And the state Supreme Court certainly has the right to apply its own state constitutional principles.
Heather, is that something that you think could happen where our state Supreme Court, if this fails, if the Republicans fail at the federal level, would you see that happening where the state Supreme Court would say, okay, you know what, it is ours and it's ours to do? Or do you think the legislature could then say, okay, look, we're going to fix this. We don't need the court. We'll fix it?
I don't know whether strategically the Republican House will submit a map on time. And maybe they will submit a map and the governor won't sign it, so it'll fail on all the deadlines, and then the court will step in. So this is so unique, and we're kind of getting the weeds here on lawyering, but you know, the state Supreme Court has said this violates, the plan violates the state constitution. And they did that in sort of a brilliant way, because I don't think what their complaints were would have been a U.S. Constitution violation. They're using novel theories.
Wait, I just want to point out, the petitioners only brought a challenge under the state constitution. So
correct.
But the Pennsylvania Supreme Court wasn't picking and choosing. That was what was presented to them.
They did it brilliantly. Okay, they chose to go down that avenue. So the question will be, will the U.S. Supreme Court come in and say what the court has done with these short time frames made it an unconstitutional situation? And I don't know the answer to that.
And I want to just piggyback that real quick. There's also a Supreme Court case involving Wisconsin. True? That's right. Yes. What's the difference? That is a federal, and North Carolina. Those are federal.
All of those
cases.
were under interpretations of the federal constitution.
Right. Those are all federal. And what's the difference between the two? If you could real quickly just.
Well, I think, and you probably know better, but because you argued the case, but so what's going to happen here potentially is that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court is potentially going to violate the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 4, Clause 1, because it's going to insert itself into drawing the map instead of the state legislature. And the U.S. Constitution says it is the state legislatures who are to control elections.
But there are a whole history of cases, even decided by the United States Supreme Court, that have recognized that a state Supreme Court can review a map for its constitutionality. And so we have 50 states, and each state has different terms and conditions sometimes set out in the Constitution. Some of them have different common law principles that apply, and there is a lot of Supreme Court, United States Supreme Court precedent that says the Supreme Court of the state does have a right to make decision-making in that. So it's not.
But can they draw the map?
Well, but they did. Well, as a matter of fact, in Pennsylvania, they did in 1992.
All right, let's just say that we move on, and either the legislature comes up with one, or in the end, the state Supreme Court draws its own map. What's the map you want to see?
I think the voters want, and everybody wants, basically a nonpartisan map that would respect political subdivisions. I think the Democrats, and we offered evidence, and in fact, Lieutenant Governor Stack looked at a number of the computer simulated maps. And
which is one of the computer simulators.
That is one, right. And so what the petitioners had an expert witness from the University of Michigan who ran 500 simulated examples using the traditional criteria that are explicitly set out in the court order, and came up with many maps. And that was an example that we presented. We called it the Stack illustrative map. But it shows you how vastly distinct this is from the current map. And I would point out that's a 9-to-9. We would predict that there'd be a 9-to-9 allocation Republican and Democrat. So,
but it does violate one of the early tenets that we heard about, and that is that you not to separate a county or a city. And that this particular one, I know there are 499 others. Right. This particular one would split Pittsburgh.
No, and as Heather said, that there is going to be some splits. That's inevitable because you have to have population down to the single person. So sometimes you have the county, but you actually have to move 2 blocks over to make them equal. So this really respects political subdivisions, and it's degrees. And I think really the bottom line, and we were arguing to the court, if you have a map, you should be able to defend the map. So in other words, if you go up and say, this was a map, it was compact, we had to go east or west, we chose to go west, here's why we did this. They did not come up with a single witness to defend this map, nor could they, because it was done for partisan gerrymandering. And even the cases that have been reluctant to overturn maps have all said, no, partisan gerrymandering is not a legitimate function in the map design.
So I doubt my dear friend Cliff Levine would be here if there were 13 Democrats and 5 Republicans.
But you would be here. That would be the difference.
Maybe not. Maybe not. We just don't know. Okay? But to say that this is done purely to even the playing field and that your side has no interest in the politics on it, can I say seems a little disingenuous.
No, I think.
So politics is involved.
No, of course it is.
Because it's always involved. And to the victor go the spoils. That when you're in charge.
And that's where we disagree. That's where we disagree. It was called.
When you have the House, when you have the Senate, when you have the governor, you want to have committee chairmanships, you have appropriations, and you want to control the lines.
Let me just use that line.
When the Republicans are in charge,
I can't get a word in here, but
that's
at some point
what they want to do.
Now you can.
To the victor goes the spoils. And then you know what? We actually adopted civil service, and we had reforms to that, because the idea of having to the victor goes the spoils and having government that really didn't serve legitimate purposes was rejected in our history. And we've rejected many situations where it became over-politicized. And this is a situation, you know, the fact that these cases are rising all over the country, there is a frustration that voters feel they can't have a say in the democracy.
And the solution to that is a constitutional amendment.
Right, but is there a sense that, very quickly, a real sense that the Supreme Court will judge on the North Carolina and Wisconsin cases before the fall election?
I don't know.
Any sense?
Oh, before the fall? Well, no, they stayed. Actually, North Carolina, see, the fall election really starts in February because you got to start getting petitions for the primary, and that's the urgency of the timing here. Okay.
I want to thank both of you for being with us this morning on the KDPG Sunday edition. Maybe by the next time you're on, we'll have it settled. Who knows?
Yeah, that's right. Hopefully we'll have a 9-to-9 fair map.
We'll be back in just a moment.
Thank you.